what's going on, guys? Today I'll be talking about Justin Herbert and whether or not he could be considered overrated. This on another episode of So Justin Herbert, he's been an interesting quarterback since he was drafted back in 2020 for the LA Chargers, and needless to say, he's not had the most success of all the quarterbacks drafted since that year. Now, he has put up good numbers. He's put up numbers every year he's been on the Chargers, and his skill matched with those numbers has caused many in the NFL media to constantly rate him as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Not top 3, not top 5, but in the top 10. And his stats and skills versus his success has not necessarily matched up. So let's get into it. In 2020, it was his first year starting, and he put up great numbers. He put up over 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, had a great year. Didn't win the most games, but he only came in, he didn't start every game of the season. And things were looking bright. Moving on to 2021, his numbers only improved. He went up to 38 touchdowns on the year, played the full season, and had the Chargers back to a winning record. And I think that was good. He was showing progress. That team was getting better around him. Things could surely go better from here. Except 2021 was the last year he'd break the 30 touchdown in a single season barrier. And now the slow slide begins. While his numbers were still good, they were no longer to that 2021 level, and yet people would still rate him as one of the best quarterbacks. So here we go, 2022. Plays the full season. This is the first year he makes the playoffs. Herbert has the Chargers at 10-7. He's thrown 25 touchdowns on the year to 10 interceptions, and things are looking pretty good for the Chargers. They're going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC wildcard round. And what can go wrong? Well, it turns out everything can go wrong. In that game, Justin Herbert, his numbers were acceptable for the most part. He threw 1 touchdown. Now, the Chargers had a great big lead over the Jaguars, and then they didn't. Now, I don't think that playoff game was necessarily Herbert's fault. I feel like that was more due to coaching and a failure on the Chargers' part to game plan around how to maintain their lead over the Jacksonville Jaguars. But needless to say, Herbert didn't have a great stellar game to go along with that. Moving on to 2023, Herbert got hurt partially of the way through the season, so he didn't have the best record or stats this season. They were acceptable for the games he did play, but it just wasn't good. And the Chargers basically had to write off the season as a bust. And then we get to 2024. The Chargers, after 2023, of course, fired their head coach, brought in Harbaugh as their new head coach. And Harbaugh did a lot to change and fix the Chargers. Now, in 2024, Herbert's numbers, they were down a little bit. They remained in the low 20s for touchdowns, and his sacks dramatically went up. He got sacked 41 times in 2024. That's a lot. But the Chargers had great success. This was his best record since becoming a Charger, with 11-6 being the Chargers' record in 2024. But something just felt off a little bit with him. He wasn't the mainstay of that offense anymore. Harbaugh had moved it to the run game, and that was a good choice for the team, but maybe not for Herbert, because Herbert, in that first playoff game against the Houston Texans, he looked good to start, but then everything started to go wrong. And this is where things get dark, this 2024 wildcard playoff game against the Houston Texans, because he threw a touchdown, he got sacked 4 times, he didn't fumble the ball, so good job there. And the killer was he threw 4 interceptions. No quarterback should throw 4 interceptions in one playoff game. Unless, well, no quarterback who's considered good should throw 4 interceptions in one playoff game. And that's a big knock on him right there, because consistently over his career, he wasn't one of the more interception-prone quarterbacks. Now, he threw a fair number of interceptions in each season, but this one game was more interceptions than he threw in the 2024 regular season. It was more than half of what he threw in 2023. And that's a crazy amount of interceptions for one game for a quarterback who supposedly is good as Justin Herbert. So, what do I think about Herbert? Well, he's a good quarterback. He's not amazing. He's not top 10, but he's serviceable. He fits into the system. He plays well within whatever system he's in. He's versatile. He played at his best when he was allowed to throw more, but being the point guard for Harbaugh's more running game focused system, he's also been serviceable there. However, I don't think he's necessarily the greatest top 10 quarterback in the league, the great top 10 quarterback. Because when you look at it, he, in the biggest moments of his career, the 2 times he's made the playoffs and had a chance to go deep, he has blown it. Now, the first game against the Jaguars, again, I'm not entirely convinced it was entirely his fault, but he did the team no favors with his performance. And against the Texans in 2024, it was most assuredly his fault, because he was the reason the Chargers lost that game by throwing so many interceptions. It's actually kind of amazing how close it was despite throwing 4 interceptions. But Herbert is still the Chargers quarterback. I don't think they'll move on from him anytime soon, because he still has enough skill to be serviceable. And serviceable in the modern NFL is more than enough. Because we all know, as long as you have a quarterback who can throw the ball consistently and potentially win you big games, that's all you need. And even if it isn't all you need, it's still better than having some terrible B-list, C-list, and D-list quarterbacks. So with that being said, guys, please like, share, subscribe down below, comment what you think, and I'll see you next time.